Hi, I'm Fawnde. Welcome back. This is the 9th DM diary of the Throne of Rihdar. Da 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 da. How interesting is it not? Anyway, last week my players had managed to survive the interrogation from the guard captain, Joseph Flume of Maplewood. This week, they're now face to face with the realization that a Vegetan, one of the children of Aldania Pedofeet, the witch who has given them a blessing, is now being slaved and sold in an auction in front of them. Now, what are they going to do? Now, my players are in a very weird spot. They're in a weird spot because that's what the topic of the game is. You are potentially good people, maybe you're bad people, but you're working for Kronos the Shamed, who is now a hero turned a villain. So, what do? Do you still decide you wish to care about these things and fight back against Kronos, who has enslaved you? Or do you just become evil and not care about things? My players, to some extent, have, I suppose, had decided to care, for they said, we need to buy this Vegetan. So they began bidding, but they set a limit. They set a limit of 1 Rihdarian gold. I suppose it's important to put the perspective of my money system into D&D terms, because 1 Rihdarian gold is a lot more than 1 gold in D&D. 1 gold in normal Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition is like, 1 gold's not that much. You might give that off as like a tip to someone. But my game, the money is based around silver. So a gold piece in D&D is 1 silver in my game. So that means 1 Rihdarian gold is worth 100 gold. That is the base value price. And based off of the rules I go for slave trading, that's more than they should have paid regardless for a Vegetan. However, this, they would realize, is the first Vegetan to be sold. They would quickly realize, talking to this, the auctioneer and listening, that they have caught a lot of Vegetans, but they've done a lot of experiments. And this is, after a while, they've finally figured out, okay, this is what they're best for, and now they're trying to sell them. So that means that they've killed a bunch of Vegetans, and now they understand the molding and how fragile they are. And this is them setting up a price for it. So they decide not to go over 1 Rihdarian gold, and the bidding starts out pretty small. The people in the market, a lot of times the slavery stuff is more for the nobles and rich people who come on vacation here. But since the tourism has been destroyed in Maplewood, due to the Maple Springs being vandalized, that's not really an option. So the people they're selling to are lesser nobles who might just be around, or people who might just be interested in slavery, anything of the sort. About the same time, Newt is the one negotiating, and Stavros is up there helping. Then Hawkins is just kind of on standby, and Kira as well. Kira notices Duke Gilbert Ilgut coming into the marketplace. He is really lazy, and he sits on this throne and is carried by 4 people. So Kira goes out of her way to ensure that he does not become part of this auction, because she knows they'll probably lose out if the Duke gets involved. They do not have enough money to more or less negotiate with. But weirdly enough, the party actually has a lot of money on them. They are carrying around 75 Rihdarian gold, which is equivalent to 7,500 gold, which is a lot. That's a lot of gold. But that is for their mission from Kronos, more or less. So to a lot of extent, they've been very hesitant on using any of that, even though they could potentially use it. So she's distracting him, and Hawkins ends up joining in and helps distract him while the negotiations go on. The price starts pretty small at a few silver, then it keeps throwing up more and more silver, and the price keeps being raised, and Newt is trying to negotiate, and then Newt ends up encountering a certain individual. His name is Hippo. He's a merchant who starts trying to sell Newt some strange items during this. He starts trying to sell him a whistle, and Newt's not interested. So then he ups it. He's trying to sell him an entire alive octopus. And it gets Newt's attention, but this is not the place, he doesn't think, as he's trying to buy this Vegetan. So Hippo's pushing his buttons, distracting him, trying to get him to raise the price and saying he'll help him if he buys something. But, nothing much comes from it. And then the price reaches 99 Rihdar, 99 silver doctrines. And then suddenly someone bumps the price up to 2 Rihdarian gold. A weird, greasy-looking man who's hiding in the back, not even part of the auction. And as soon as that happens, the party realizes, oh, we cannot win this bet anymore. But Stavros, the commander of the group, and also the only human, has a plan. He says, if it goes over 1 Rihdarian gold, I have a plan to do, so don't worry. So it goes over 1 Rihdarian gold. And perhaps I'm, to some extent I wanted to not take over Rihdarian gold, but the selling price for a Vegeton is 5 Rihdarian gold, so 500 gold. So I guess, that was a low bid anyway. It shouldn't even started that low. It should have started at 1 Rihdarian gold, but I wanted the party to be involved. And thankfully so. Because what Stavros would do next, quite frankly, shocked me. I was not prepared for it. And it's... let's just explain what he's done. So, whenever the plant witch Aldenia Pedofit gave the players her blessing as a witch, she imbued the power into the bracelets because it would be too much for them to handle potentially. And there's a lot of abilities such as they have good berries on there, you can heal yourself, you can add elemental damage to one of your attacks. You can do a lot of stuff with these. And I mean a lot. Not a little bit, a lot. But the problem is there's one ultimate ability you can do, which is to summon a Vegeton to help fight with you for 10 minutes. So you have a summon. But the problem is whenever you summon it consumes the entire bracelet. And the more uses it has, the more powerful it is. So the reason this shocked me is that Stavros goes up casually, uses his entire bracelet that he just got, so doesn't use any of the other 20 items it has. It's an amazing magical item for low levels. Doesn't use any of that. Instead, he sacrifices all of it to summon a huge Vegeton, which shocks the crowd. And then he continues to argue with them, saying, we know these Vegetons, we're their rightful owner. But we're not inconsiderate. I will pay the 1 Rihdarian gold, which is a lot of money still, for them, and take this Vegeton off your hands. So more or less, he has forced the hand of the Riverets. I was shocked, genuinely shocked. And the Riverets they were trying to argue, saying that he couldn't do it. Then there was a weird sound, and the person selling it, seemed to change his mind and gave him the Vegeton, which he then wrote a letter to Aldenia and sent them off by themselves into the Maplewood marshes, which retrospectively probably wasn't the best idea, but you can do cool things and then make weird decisions right afterwards. Regardless, it was an amazing moment. And this brings up a point that one of my flaws as a DM is, even though I do a lot of things to benefit my players when they do things I like, I'm really bad at thinking about giving them something in the moment. In the moment there, I should have just given him, that was crazy. That was a heroic moment. I should have given him a free nat 20 on any roll he wanted to use in the future. And I did end up giving him a few things, I let him draw a card. I like doing card inspiration for MVPs, but I let him have one as a DM card, so he got to draw that. He can add it to any roll he wants. I also gave him inspiration, just normal inspiration with advantage, because I really wanted him to know that this was an epic moment. You made a huge sacrifice, and I want to reward you for the sacrifice, Of course, he knew he was sacrificing it, but he basically threw away a lot to free this Vegeton, which was amazing. And I wanted to reward him because I knew that there's more Vegetons that are enslaved, but that is not the only one. So I don't want it to be I just used it on one, and now there's all these other ones. So that Vegeton goes. And at the same time, the Duke is arguing with Hawkins because they're doing so well at distracting him. He's arguing with Hawkins over trying to buy this huge piece of meat that they both want to buy. And this poor shopkeeper is there more or less having to choose between this crazy lizard folk or the Duke of their town. Of course he chooses the Duke, but they were all having this argument with the Duke and distracting the hell out of him while this stuff was going on. To the point where the Duke was regretful whenever he saw the large Vegeton. He tried to buy it, but he wouldn't sell him. Stavros won't sell that one. So he's kind of regretful about that, but he ended up moving off. So they did a really good... They had a lot of good teamwork there. They knew... Not all of them were part of the auction, but whenever they saw the dude walk in, the ones who weren't part of it instantly realized they needed to jump in. And they did a very good job of being able to control the situation. Even though they couldn't keep it under one Rihdarian gold, because it was probably almost impossible anyway, they managed to control it enough to where they couldn't be outbested, and they pulled something so amazing that it had to work for them. Now, after this, they kind of dispersed. Their main goal was to go to Vin's Smithing Repair, the local blacksmith shop, because all of their gear was in tatters. They spent 2 weeks in the Maple Spring, or in the Maple Marshes, and all their gear is nasty, they smell awful, it's torn up, it's been scrapped. All of it needs to be repaired. Some of them need to buy stuff. So they're basically trying to get to the inn. Well, the inn is after the smithy. So they're going to go to the smithy, but then Kira notices the weird, creepy, greasy-looking guy who had raised the bid and had also been the one who did the is sneaking off. He's not really sneaking, but he's kind of following the 2 Vegetans who are now trying to fly out of the town. So she's following him, and nothing's going too strange, but until the Vegetans take a left to go to the gate to leave, and he takes a right to go wherever. So she stops following them. Instead, she continues to follow the Vegetans to the gate, where they are currently stopped by Ronald, Mo, and Luke, the same 3 guards who had stopped them earlier that day. And she manages to talk them out and lets them go. So these 2 Vegetans, the really large one and the small one who was just a slave, are now flying off with a note from Stavros back to Aldenia's Grove. Which, I'm not a cruel DM, but my new motto is I'm not cruel, I'm sadistic. But within reason, of course. The party had sent them off without really thinking about it. But imagine this. You send these Vegetans off in the town where all these people have been enslaving them, but they don't know where they come from. They're probably going to try and follow those guys back to the source. So they just totally sent those guys off by themselves in broad daylight in front of the river rats, people, and everything. But that one guy didn't follow them, so whatever. But whenever Kira turns around, she realizes that this creepy guy with bags under his eyes is just watching her. He's just staring and staring and staring and staring. He doesn't say anything. He just watches her. It gives this awful, creepy feeling. So she throws a rock at him. Misses. But he doesn't stop. Keeps watching. So she hurriedly goes back to the group at the repair shop. Whenever they all get there, they quickly meet the daughter of Pinavin, the blacksmith, who seems to be reading some young adult fan fiction that some of them recognize. But they talk to her, they hear a few things, some of the problems of the war and the foreboders around and whatever. And then they talk to Pinavin, who says she'll help them, but then she notices that they're with Newt. Newt, who is an uncivilized species that she does not recognize. So she says she cannot work for them. She's sorry, but she cannot help them. It'll bring too much danger for her and her family. But the party doesn't seem to really understand how dangerous, what it means to be dangerous. They know that people are human-centric and racist and discriminate and there's slavery, and they get that, but they don't really seem to understand what she means by it's dangerous for her family. But they keep trying to push onto her, and they keep trying to call her racist and things. And she's like, no, I'm not racist. I'm fine with you being who you are, but other people are, and if they know I served you, they could potentially come here and hurt my family. But the players aren't really having it. And then she kind of gives in a little bit and says, all right, I'll help you, but only for 2 reasons. The first reason is war is coming, potentially. And while I hope the rumor remains a rumor, if it's true, only money could potentially help me and my family escape. So I'm willing to do this if you pay me more. So they agree, and they make a deal where they pay her more money to repair, and they try and keep it on the down low. And she repairs their gear, She takes the armor that was originally Newt's given from one of the Night Lords that Stavros has, repairs that, takes some of their weapons, some of their gear, and more or less says, all right, I'll have this to you by tomorrow. Please enjoy yourself, whatever, blah, blah, blah. She sends them off. At this point, the party goes outside, and Stavros, who is the leader, Shmeeb has been talking to me outside of game a little bit, saying like how he wishes the party. I really feel this funny because a few days before the session, he said to me, "You know, Stavros really wishes the party would follow his order more and stop questioning him so much, stop offering other ideas. More or less, he wishes he, as the commander, had more like control as a commander, just to say something and they'd all do it." And it's funny because he says, "All right, we should go to the inn and sleep," and then Hawkins, the strategist, second in command, instantly says, "I think we should go to the market, or we should go shopping." And instantly there's a divide. Everyone goes to the market, planning to go to the black market as well, while Stavros goes off to the Springside Inn by himself. Now this is the first time my players have been separated, like properly separated. I have played many games where I'm a player and the party is awful. There's no favoritism to staying as a party, and most people just want to do their own thing. So there's no more or less chemistry, and everyone separates all the time. But I'm really against that a lot of times. I'm fine with it too, but it's a lot easier and sometimes more fun if the party's together. So this was the first time my party separated. I didn't think anything was going to come from it, but I thought it was an interesting moment. They've all separated. They're all more or less missing their weapons. Half of them don't have armor. So I was like, this is fun. So Stavros goes off to the inn, up to the Maple Springs, and the others go to Shelu's General Goods, where they start buying a bunch of general goods. They buy various things, supplies, new clothes, rations because they've ran out of food, torches, a few necessities and other things. And they find out that Travis Shelu is currently not here anymore. He's up at Port Crevice trying to find a doctor. And that's whenever Kira remembers, oh yes, this is the place that needed a doctor. So after some talking, they go to the back and she meets Marcy Shelu, a young girl who's extremely sick. After a lot of prying and looking, she can't really determine what she's looking at, even though she's a trained medic. And she has a vague idea. She understands it's a respiratory disease and it's very far progressed and very bad. She does not understand what it is. This disease is actually sickle rot. It is a very, very bad lung disease. But Kira, at the moment, does not understand what it is. So unfortunately, she has to leave without being able to give any really good advice. She does cast a healing word upon the little girl, but that only serves to heal the scratches that have been formed at her neck as she tries to scratch the pain away. So they live there after buying some things, and they end up heading back to the town hall, where they go to the counter clerk, and Hawkins says, "I would like some beer and to play cards." And so then they are then led to the bottom of the staircase to a hidden door. It opens and they start going into a basement. Down there, it opens up into a very nice, almost replica of the town hall, black market trading center, more or less. There's people down there. There's a small bar. People are drinking. People are gambling. There's lines of weaponry. You see boxes of potions and vials of things. There are scrolls, papers. There's a board for services. People are trying to get services or offering services. In the back, there's big machinery like cannons and ballistas. And in the corner, there's more slaves. There's another vegetan that's enslaved. There's even a child who's literally a slave. Which these things kind of bother the party, but it does not drive them to heroism. Perhaps because they think they're in over their head, or they're learning their place in the world. Maybe they do want to. It's hard for me to tell sometimes. It's hard for me to tell if they had the power, if they would have saved those slaves, or if they just don't care enough. Because I think they are starting to learn how weak they are in the world. Orbitus is not a kind place. It has ate them up, chewed them out, spit them up, ate them up again. And the entire time, they keep getting more and more bad news. So they're in here talking and doing various things, looking around. They just came down here to see what there was. There's a bunch of magical items, a lot of things that catch their attention. And then they end up realizing that sleepy-eyed Rufus is down here. The same man who was staring at Kira earlier. And he's led over there. He introduces himself as the leader of the Riverettes and gives him a brief tour and description of everything that's sold here. And eventually comes down to their talking, and he's a little bit creepy, but he is what he is. And then Newt, played by Un, decides to make a deal with this guy after hearing him gripe about someone, this new band of bandits up in Port Crevice, releasing the information of the war decree early and not getting any money for it, just basically spreading this information. And Newt offers a deal to him that he'll free the Vegetan over there in the cage if they can go up there and get some good information for him, or even potentially destroy that new bandit group. So, of course, Sleepy-Eyed Rufus says yes. He has nothing to lose by this, besides one Vegetan. And little do the party members know, there's a whole stock of Vegetans in the back, ready to be sold. So it's not like him losing another one. That is 5 Rihdarian gold for a price is very little if he can get rid of this anger and problem and nuisance that is formulating in Port Crevice, a town up. So he makes a deal with Newt, so now they have this deal of sorts. And he seems to be on good terms, but he's still creepily watching and just staring and doing things like that. And as the party goes around and they start talking about things, they start shopping, you'd see Hawkins would buy a couple vials of things, a scroll of cure wounds. Then Kira would go over and look at some of the slaves and things like that. And Kira would end up being talked into buying a jackal by someone who was dressed up like a bandit. He looked like he belonged down here. He looked like one of the members. And another thing that's important to mention, this place is very obviously supported by Duke Gilbert as well, because there's city watchmen who are also put down here. So there's a lot of corruption and things that the party are realizing are down here. So they are now down here shopping, and Kira is being talked to by this bandit who's not really looking at her too much, but he more or less convinces her to buy a jackal. It's not very expensive, but so she buys it, even though she didn't really want to. And she would later go on to say to the party, I don't know why I bought this, but I did. It's became a running thing now that for some reason she bought the jackal after being talked about it. And whenever they went back to the party and he left, they would have noticed, she noticed that bandit's eyes were yellow. And stimulating that he may be something more than just a bandit, or maybe there's something a little special about him, as he walks upstairs and leaves after selling the jackal to her. But no more thoughts came from it besides them saying, that guy probably doesn't work here. At the same time, Newt would be listening to a very scared farmer who is making an assassination request on Father Gaban of the Temple of Vost, because he would not let his father go free. So they're down here talking to him and looking at the service board and trying to make a deal by chance. And they're just over here shopping and talking and trying to understand what they would do next. And across the town, finally making it an hour's walk away from town, Stavros makes it to the Springside Inn. There, he is greeted when he opens the door by a very large 3-story building. And this place is very, very empty. There's no one here. He assumes, and he would tell by the endless seats and tables, that probably this place is usually very, very popular. But due to the vandalism of the Springs, there's no tourism, and there's only 2 people in here besides himself and the clerk. So he walks up to the table where there's this dark-skinned elf. He can quickly tell she's an elf because she does not hide her ears, and he can also see that she has a slave collar on. She introduces herself as Mirinda Ildgut, the daughter of Duke Gilbert Ildgut. So she asked if he's an adventurer here to investigate the Springs, which he says no, and he more or less gets a very good deal for a room. Usually a one-night room here is 1 Rihdarian gold, but it's down to 25 silver dockins, so he pays for half of it as he has no more money, and he takes a seat and he talks to her a little bit about some of the things going on, and he finds out there's a bathhouse he goes to. I would like to say one of my favorite things that my party's been doing, my party has this 75 Rihdarian gold that is on Kit, the gnome played by Peeves, as he is the treasurer of the group. But they don't touch that. And each of them individually have 1 Rihdarian gold, or had. And they haven't went around like, oh, I spend my money for this. They've been basically using each other to buy things. So more or less like they've almost pulled their money. And they're all just, sometimes instead of like, oh, I'll pay for my own stuff, one person usually pays for their group for things. And I don't know why they done this. I think it's mostly because they got tired of having to... Actually, I know why. Because they didn't want to show people their Rihdarian gold very much, because that's a lot of money and makes them an easy target. So they were using people who had already broke one of theirs to avoid showing gold as much as possible. So it's created this dynamic where people are... Usually Kit's in charge of it, even though he doesn't have more money than anyone else. Paying for things. And a lot of negotiation went on as well, because Kit also has the passive effect of, if he negotiates stuff for the group, for the squad, there's a 10% discount, though he has to negotiate it. That's his skill as the treasurer of the squad. So he is doing that, and they're all talking, and he more or less Stavros pays for half of his room as he has no more money. So he spent all of his money basically freeing that... he spent 1 Rihdarian gold freeing the Vegeton. He's out of money. So he buys half the room, he goes to the bathhouse. And tells her to wait for the other half when the group comes. And she agreed to do this under the circumstance that he, as an adventurer, would tell her a story later. She seems very interested in hearing the stories of adventurers, as it seems she mentions to him that she is not allowed to leave easily. So Stavros goes to the bathhouse, and for the first time, he greatly enjoys a bath. And there's this really weird music box in there he hits that plays these really weird songs. He just kind of ignores. He enjoys his bath for a while, and then at the very end, he hears a rattling on the window. He's about to go outside, but then busting through the window comes a pig with a saddle on it. The pig busts through the window, doesn't seem to pay Stavros too much mind, but goes up to the weird box that was playing music earlier. Starts hitting at it. So Stavros, kind of concerned that someone might be in the box, opens it up to find a very weird halfling with sideburns, a weird smile, squinted eyes, and dressed in a suit that looks like it'd be the suit of someone being buried in a funeral. So looks up at him with a mouth agape. Well, this is awkward. And there, the session ends. For the first time, they've managed to spend an entire day in Maplewood without any combat. I actually think this... I guess the session prior, but this was probably the second session, the first full session, that there was no combat for the party. There had been a lot of combat previously, but there's not been much combat here, and that would having no combat would set the tone for the sessions to come. But I'm very interested in seeing how my party is interacting with these new problems of civilization. I'm also very interested to see where they go from here. But that was basically it. I don't have much more to say on this matter. Thank you for watching this short recap. This is the 9th DM Diary of the Throne of Rihdar. I appreciate you listening. I hope you've enjoyed. Thank you to my players who play in my game. I hope the fun continues to be fun, and the lows continue to be low, because they make the fun more fun. Anyway, thank you for watching. My name's Fawnde. Until next DM Diary, you can catch us on Twitch, twitch.tv/Fawnde the Jester, live at noon CST every Saturday. Otherwise, you can watch the VODs on the YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Have a lovely day and take care of yourself.